Okay.
So, you got the idea here. My suggestion would be to spend your first, that first writing session getting as far down here, and especially up through chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where you're going to identify the principles that you see applying through the rest of the book, so that they will be equipped with those.
Mm-hmm.
So that if they skip chapters, they will not have missed these.
Yeah.
And then you can refer back to them.
And we can let them know that somewhere here, chapter 3, whatever you do,
Yeah, don't miss chapter 3.
Don't miss chapter 3.
Right.
In fact, if you want to skip to chapter 3 right now, feel free, what I'm
Right.
saying, chapter 3 is going to be very big.
Right. So then that's where you identify all those principles that you have, things like that, that are going to be very key.
Yeah.
If you keep them to about 7 or 8, because if you do 15, it's going to be a little overwhelming.
Sure.
So you can unpack some of the others as you actually do you can pepper them in.
Yeah. Well, I think that's. I think if I'm getting this process pretty, if I'm getting this down now, this is a story to tell, right? That's already written. It just needs to be written.
Mm-hmm.
It's been experienced. Just needs to be written.
Mm-hmm.
This right here is what I that's the hallmark. I teach this whole thing right here. Getting these down, getting this unit down, the stuff that's going to be scaled and leveraged throughout, that right there is very powerful.
Yeah, because this is the central theme of your book.
Yeah, there's no question.
So then here, these support that.
Yeah.
These right here help you, leverage these depending on where you are. And these are key principles that we're going to come back to. And then we're going to go into each one of those areas and get specific about how they do each one of those.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. You just get a different color. So, one of these.
Yeah.
Where's the black one?
There you go.
Is that it?
Yep.
Is that your black one? So basically, the what? The why? And this is the how. These are we still have to define what this thing is called, right?
Those are just the factors is, but yeah.
In fact, I don't like the way that. I just want
There's
steps.
Sometimes they're steps, sometimes they're not. They're contributors to success.
This is the let's call that the obstacle. Is that kind of what we're calling that?
I like the idea of your gap.
Gap. This is the gap.
Because over here, and there's different ways to span gaps. You can fill them in, you can bridge them, you can go around them. There's different ways.
Gap. It is a gap, which becomes an obstacle,
right,
to you getting the result. Okay? And that obstacle is going to be the obstacle. See, that's it. The obstacle is going to be different for everybody, right?
And the principle is everybody has one.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of knowing where it is.
Yeah.
And something Steve Fisher here has, and I love this, is he says, it's not, you're never going to fix that. It will always be with you. The question is it going to rule you, or are you going to rule it?
Correct.
That's the question. It's not whether you have one, you do.
Yeah.
And it's not whether you can ever get rid of it, you really can. It's a matter of deciding who's going to rule who.
I like that. What I'm looking at is just for my headspace, because I love where you're going, and again, I work on units, right? So this is what I see. This is the unit. Result. This is the, I'm sorry, yeah, that's right. This is the action, so let's just call it the workout.
Yeah, so that's the what, the why.
Yeah.
Yeah. The what, the how, the why.
Yeah, what, how, why, right?
Mhm.
But see, the thing is, we have to start here
Right.
and do this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. And then what you're doing here is once you've done that and you've identified that, that identifies you, for you, the habit you have to focus on.
Right.
Because it may not, you don't have to focus on these habits. They're already in
No, you
place
gotta
for you.
replace it. Mhm. And again, it might be as simple as just put on your sneakers, right? Step in them, not over. It might be a little bit more complex. So there's this underlying, and I know this is kind of this part, the unpacking part,
Mhm.
but there's also each one of these. If I were to pull it out, I know we're doing this little thing, so let's just pull this thing out here, right? There's gradients, right? Easy, hard, medium. So again, if you know that the easiest thing to do is just put on your sneaker. So you want to give them wins early. So along that way of getting the result, if I teach you something and in 1 week you lose 10 pounds, right? Well, now you're ready.
Mm.
Right?
Mhm.
So if the way these things are identified and put in there is the gradient and the win, getting that win early is going to fuel the momentum. It's going to, wow, hey, I could do this. You see? So that's an important part, and that's we teach gradient and return on investment. You want to do low gradient, high return on investment. Those are the activities you want to take. So I just wanted to get this here because this is going to fuel kind of that whole process.
Yeah, and that may be one of your principles. You know?
Well, the gradient, it absolutely is. Absolutely is, because here's the deal. The deal is if I go, look, here's all you have to do. To your point of the anatomy of an apology, just say you're sorry. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Well, by the way, where I was going with that was there's lots of places where it can break down, and for each person, there's a different place where it breaks down. And each circumstance is also different, so it's like another gradient of, or another area of complexity or layer.
Right.
So that the kind of relationship that you have with your mom may be breaking down for a different reason because there are different issues involved than, let's say, with a friend.
Sure.
And so then the question is, well, how do I take them to the place where the problem is, where their gap is, essentially? And the problem of organizing that book becomes very easy when I can take them through and say, think about the one relationship you want to think about right now, and start reading. Okay, is this your situation? Is that person alive?
Yeah.
It's a different process if that person is not alive, how you're going to heal. If that person is still alive, is that person somebody that you can go and talk to right now? Maybe not. There may be reasons that you can't. So then, being able to say, okay, well, no, that's my situation. It takes them, well, here's what you do in this situation. Because, it becomes so complex. But by doing it where they can hyperlink for their specific situation, they can read that book 10 times, and it's a different one because they're working on a different relationship each
Great
time.
concept that is.
So anyway, I mean, the possibilities for that here are, kind of similar.
Exist.
If you do an
definitely
ebook,
exist.
then you can build those links in so that they read the book for themselves rather than having to go, okay, skip to this chapter.
So what you're saying is, if I'm getting it, what's some of your whys relationally? What is it? Okay, well, again, I want to spend more time with my wife and my kids, and well, why is that? Well, because I have a terrible relationship with my wife, or she put my bags on the front door. Okay, pause, hyperlink, action. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So so I get what you're saying.
Okay. So for your retreat, these are your And I, if you can, get into that first chapter.
Yeah.
But I think what you're going to find is this will be the hardest part, and then when you get to this chapter, it's really going to flow. The hardest part will be organizing, and we can come back,
Yeah, okay.
for that part. Because you've got so much to say. The question is, how can we say it in a way that we can get it in, in an organized way that will help the user or the reader navigate it without getting discouraged or getting lost in details or whatever.
I love the way you just said that. Part of the way we've written this book is to ensure that you don't get lost in the details, that you don't find yourself rabbit trailed into this hole unless that was, you
Where you
wanted
need to go,
do that.
right.
You needed to do that. So I think if we create that flexibility wherever that concept, it's right here. It's pretty much in the Pareto's law type of situation.
Right? And here's where you talk about what we were just talking about there. You have one, just identifying where it is and deciding who's going to rule whom. And we're going to give you strategies on how to find it and span that gap, overcome that challenge so that you get here. Challenge them. Probably this might be a good place where you say, the intent of this book is not to finish reading it, but to get the results. And you may need to read this book a couple of times, or you may need to read it once, or you may read it partially now and then come back later and just focus on chapter 5 later. The question is, are we getting the result?
Yes. And so I'm totally clear on that. I think we definitely got enough material and content and concepts and all that stuff, so we've got it. I want to develop this here, no, I don't need to develop much, I just wanted to say this, that, and where do I hang it? Where do I put where do I speak to the point of value? And let me just say what I have found is most people don't think they have value.
Right.
It's the two people that brought them into this world haven't shared with them that they're valuable. And if they know Christ, it's one thing. But they still struggle, But I want to speak to there's a reason why we need to live a life of significance, that we don't want an end of the road with regrets. And the reason is because God has, and I don't know where this fits, okay, but basically, and this is our conversation, but basically it's not optional that we get every drop out of the life God's given us with the skill sets, the talents, right? Parable of the talents, the 10, 5, or 1. So where do we speak to stuff like that where without making it too much of an obstacle for them, but I really do want to speak to the issue that you're so important and you're so valuable to God. Number one, He died for you, right? That's where it shows His value. Number two, He's got a job for you to do. And that's why you have to apply these habits, if you will, to get the results, because those results are not going to be you-centered, they're going to be other-centered. So that's why I teach this and do this. Right. So basically it's how do we get from us-centered to other-centered, because most people do habits so they can be better, more successful, but that's not it. Right. That's really, that's the meat of it. The meat of it is, you've got all these things, right? But these things are to serve others. That's the fruit. It's the fruit. And
that's there's kind of a payoff in there that may have to come later, because very often what they often tell preachers now is there is felt need and there is real need.
Gotcha.
And when you preach, you have to be mindful of both.
Yeah.
They come in thinking they just want their marriage better, but they really need Christ.
Yeah. That's
because they're not saved.
Yeah.
We got to get that fixed before we can even talk about your marriage.
Right.
But we will talk about your marriage. But they're coming in to,
Right, but
So-
then people don't care how much people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the way you express care is what's important to them.
Right.
I think that's
So they're going to come in here, and here's where you're going to speak to that level of that felt need. But you're going to start giving them what they really need. And when you get to that spiritual place, and that may be one of the early assessments that you do is their relationship with God. And that's where they might go first. And I'm not sure where the best place to put it is, but you might be able to hint throughout, kind of do some Easter eggs, and then sew it up here. But one of the things that, as they're doing their assessments, it might be interesting to have them think about why they're wise. Like they've got some whys down there, well, I want to be rich, or, whatever, and they might put some selfish whys there.
Mm-hmm.
And then having them examine their whys, and where are the people in their whys, and where's God in their whys, and that, it's covered over now, oh, here it is, this concept, how much of this is factoring into your whys.
Well, so one of the hallmark principles that we teach is the shift from success to significance. Me-centered success,
Right.
other-centered significance. So maybe there's a way to breach
That may be one of your
approach that.
principles.
Yeah, well, as we're ferreting out the 5 areas of your life, and say, I tried here,
Mm-hmm.
right? This didn't work for me. It was when I realized
Mm-hmm.
that my value, right, was I'm unconditionally loved. Okay, so I didn't have to earn,
Right.
so I didn't have to be successful to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
Concept number 1. Number 2 is now that I understand my value, that I was bought with a price. There was nothing I could do on my best or worst days to be
Mm-hmm.
more or less valuable. Now I can, love God. Now I can love others. Well, how do you love them? You love them by serving them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hang these things over here, even my personal life, why do I work out? I don't work out to have muscles.
Right.
I don't work out to have biceps. I work out so I can have energy, so I can be more fit, I can be around longer for my family,
Right.
and then I can serve more people. So that's a monster.
Right, that's why I was saying when you're looking, having to evaluate the why behind their whys. Okay, why am I working out? Because I want to be buff? Okay, well, why that?
You might need to shift that.
Right, the question is, where are people and where's God in that why? It's you, okay, and we're all vain. I want a washboard stomach, sure. I want to look like Brad Pitt, that'd be awesome. The question is, why? But that one's about me, really. The other whys are the people and God. Where are they in my whys?
So I
So
think
that
what
may
you're
be-
saying is right here, maybe.
Could be there. You can drop a hint in your preface. You can drop a hint in when you're doing the worksheets where you're having them, assess where they're weakest and assess the whys. And you can say, by the way, in those whys, where is God and where are your people? In those whys, are they you focused or are they other focused?
I
And
like.
then you can sew it up when you get down here, where you can go, why I've been asking you about people and God along the way is because I found out when I got here, before I got that straightened out, that when I was working on all that, it really didn't matter until I got that squared away, and then all these other things fell into place. So you can hint, drop, kind of probes, ask some questions, and then sew it up here.
Yeah.
And then that's that thing where you were talking about, it runs,
Yeah,
that's that thread that runs through the whole thing.
Correct.
And, and it's, the neat thing is something that Tolkien said when he was writing, The Hobbit and all that. It was not an overtly Christian thing that he did, but Christianity is just soaked into every word all the way through it. And he said, and he sort of criticized Lewis, and I think he's right. And Lewis tried to be overt about it. And so The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe it's great, but it just doesn't last, it doesn't have the magic that The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings does. Because he trusted that his worldview would be in it and soaked in it throughout, even though he was writing a fantasy story. So that it didn't have to be overt. It's still there. And because you are who you are, and because you are who you are in Christ, and because Christ is central to your life, I think you're going to find that it's going to show up in your preference, and you're going to find ways to include that along the way, and then you're going to wrap it up at the end because you don't have any other choice. It's who you are.
Yeah,
it's going to come out.
Good. Okay. Well, that's helpful for me. So we can touch on it here, right?
Because you're going to tell a little bit about you. You know, that's. I mean, sorry, this is in your preface.
Yeah, I was going to say that's okay.
In your preface up here, where you're talking about writing the book, and you can also talk, in your acknowledgments, you can talk about the important people in your life and why, they really made all of this important to you. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been important to you, and you would have ended up with regrets or whatever. And so, and then you can talk about your relationship with Jesus Christ in there, and how that has become central to all of this. And then, but you don't have to be real strong here. You just kind of just express who you are. And then, you'll have opportunities along the way, and then really nail it on the spiritual.
Good. Okay. Excellent. So what would be, to use our own guiding formula, as I'm writing, right? So, for all those that wish to write, here's going to be the basic things that are going to happen.
Sure.
You're going to, so you're, as you're speaking to me, as I'm in the retreat and I'm starting here, what are some of the things that I can put in place? Like, for example, work so much on, each area so that you can touch them all. Or, what are some of the recommendations you could make to help me get the result of my retreat? The result of my retreat is that I have tell my story, right? Do whatever you call this. Then I write this, chapter 1, chapter 2, get down the principles, and maybe touch on one of those areas. So what would be your recommendation?
And how long do you have?
I'm leaving on the 26th. And
so basically a week?
Yeah, I've got like 6 full days.
Okay. You're not going to get all that done in 6 days. Okay. So, recognize your limitations.
Perfect. So that's what you're saying right here. Guys, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Because that's essentially you will have written half your book in 6 days, which would be a monumental feat. So I don't know that that's going to happen. Now, people write in different ways. I have a friend, and a lot of people are like this. He just regurgitates it onto the page, just gets it all on the page, doesn't care about quality or anything, and then he goes back and edits and fixes. Some people do that. You may do that. It's that, you just have to figure out what your style is and what works best for you. I do a thing that I call troweling. Have you ever seen guys lay concrete? They lay a section, and it is, they work it, and they do the vibrator, and then they smooth it, and it's all, and then they pour the next section, and then they smooth it, and then that's, so now it's all kind of tight, and so I'm smoothing, and I gotta go back, and because there's a theme there, I want to, here, and then I keep going and going, no, I need to do some more here, and I'll do that, and it's aggravating to me, even. But by the time I'm done,
you have less to go back and touch.
I'm finished.
Yeah.
I send it to the editor at that point. It's my first draft, but it's been reworked and reworked and reworked so many times that by the time I'm finished, it's pretty solid. Then I will send it to the editor. They'll have comments. I will have gotten some distance on it.
Yes.
Then when I get it back, like,
Unit
you know,
of
2
time.
months later,
Yeah.
I'll go back through it again and then I'll fix, you know, some stuff. But that's pretty much it.
Well, then it brings up a really good question. Really, really important thing. What's the process? I mean, is my goal to write a perfect manuscript? Is my goal to get down my concepts with enough, my content and explanation, and illustrations and all that stuff? Do we then give it to somebody actually, then we'll edit it and...
That's what you have to figure out.
Okay.
When you're there, as you go, and it's unfortunately trial and error, to figure out what your writing method style is.
Sure.
Because you can go either way. Because by the time I'm done, it really just needs a first reader, I call them, you know, just, does it make sense? You know, and then and maybe a copy edit after I've done my second revision.
Okay.
It may be that what you want to do is just get it down, give it to me, I do a content edit, which is, okay, well, no, I think this paragraph needs to go here, move this paragraph down here, we got a gap here, fill that in. So it's really up to you. And you'll know as you go which will make the most of your time and what will make you feel most satisfied about your manuscript. Because you may get there and this is all you get done, but it's solid. It needs a copy edit and it's ready to roll. And if that's the case, that's okay. Because we only need like maybe 1, 2, 3 chapters for putting together a proposal. You don't have to write the whole book. Ideally, you want to get like 3 chapters for a proposal, and then you get the contract to write the book.
So what does that look like? Like with a reasonable, you know, like the bell curve.
Yeah.
So say I fit into all the reasonable bell curve, you know, categories. How long should I expect to take? Because thank you, because now we're talking about expectation management, which is a huge guiding principle. So how long should it take me to get through this to what you just said? And then you do your moving paragraphs around, making it make sense. Then we would send it wherever you want to send it. Then what happens? What happens there?
I would recommend going to an agent, and I have a couple.
Okay.
And they would then shop it, or they'll first look at it and go, you know, no, thank you, and then we just keep looking until we find an agent. You go with an agent ideally because they will have an idea of which publishers are looking for what. Because if you don't know what publishers are looking for at the moment, like they may be all stacked up on nonfiction and they're looking for fiction and they just don't want any nonfiction right now. Or they may be scaling back, or you just don't know. But the agents will know what they're looking for, so it's more of a targeted approach to finding a publisher. So we just find an agent, they will shop it, somebody will nibble, they will say, okay, we're interested in that, let's talk. And then they will negotiate, begin negotiations on a contract. The contract will be, and they're pretty standard, almost cookie cutter with some things that you can fix. One of the biggest ones is length of the book, deadline for the book, and advance. And on terms of advance, then my recommendation is you only take enough of an advance to cover whatever costs you have, which would be for an editor, me. So then the publisher is paying out of the advance. And then if they never make that advance back, that's on them. It doesn't affect you. It's not great. I mean, nobody wants that.
Sure.
But then at that point, then they give you a deadline to get the book. And something about the deadline gets that stuff done.
Deadline driven.
I mean, and when you have, self-imposed deadlines are okay. So they work for some people, they don't work for others. Those hard deadlines really, make you work and get the job done. So then you write the book.
Got it.
And they publish it, and then part of that is then you're coming up with your strategy to market it. And unfortunately for most publishers, the primary decision maker is platform. It's not what you say, it's not even how good you write.
Yeah, so you have a platform to sell.
Do you have a built-in audience?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And, I mean, how big does that audience have to be?
Well, it's not uncommon for a pastor to, have, say, 5,000 or 10,000 people, and he's got an automatic in.
See, because we have, well, let me take a step back. You know enough about me and about this project that God's kind of given me, and what I'm trying to do, create the book, the workbook. God's vision He gave me is this will be a book/workbook that's in men's ministry studies around the world. That's basically what He said. So knowing that that's I could be wrong, but that was pretty clear when He revealed that to me.
Right.
When you say market, no, you didn't say market. What did you say? My platform.
Platform is
So
part of marketing.
Yeah, so I have a platform, like in our profession, where, I speak regularly to tens of thousands of doctors.
Okay.
That platform. But that's my business platform, right?
Okay.
I have an entrepreneurial platform that with one phone call, Jay Abraham's already given me his platform of 150,000 entrepreneurs that struggle with balance, that need habits that, so I don't know what a platform means or...
Those are platforms. And so, it may be yours and it may be somebody else's, that they are giving you access to that, and that works. And so that will be part of what we'll talk about when we do the proposal. We put that together, because one of the part is, how are you going to market it? How are you going to sell the book? And you talk about that. Well, I have access to this. And then what you can do is, in the meantime, start talking with these people about specifics and say, and I would develop all of this into a seminar that you could then deliver and sell tickets to.
Well, so what you're talking about is right
in
there.
advance of the book.
That's what you're talking about then. You're talking about the H with the live print web.
That's it.
And, doing the weekend seminar right there, and Bible studies, and using the material before it's actually published.
And then you can talk about people that are interested, that have platforms themselves that are interested in adding you and your book to their resources or whatever. So just any place where you have access to distribution and access to a market, you're going to talk about that.
Okay. Because that's what we do. We've got access to
There you go.
lots and lots of markets.
And and in the meantime, as the material, you're developing the material, you can start thinking about how you would structure your web and get your web going, and how you can use the web to market the material for a workshop, and then get endorsements and from your friends who will then say, hey, my friend Frank Glorbo is going to come in with this, for my men's ministry, we're bringing in this guy who does this, and then they add it. Then you have access to all those people. So you're a marketing guy, so you just get your marketing hat on, and that's what goes into your proposal.
Got it. And that's what we'll write together. Okay.
So that's essentially what sells it to a publisher.
Got it.
It's not the content. The content's, they expect the content to be decent, and they expect the writing to be good. That's sort of the givens.
Okay.
Because they have lots of those.
Got it.
They have lots of people with good ideas and good writing. The question is, does anybody want to read that?
Got it. And quite frankly, they don't want to think about who that reader is going to be. They want you to have a plan to reach that reader.
Exactly. They want you to know who that reader is, and they'll either agree with you or not. You've seen Shark Tank. Publishing works the exact same way, and they're all like Kevin. They don't want to take chances.
Yeah.
And he calls himself a disciplined investor, and what that means is, I will only give my money to a sure thing.
Yeah. That's why he has a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So they're thinking the same way.
What do you see as a reason? Because it's I have many things to do. I have all day to do them. As I shared with you, God has obviously been piling on some things. And I'm, totally okay with whatever deadline is given, as long as it's reasonable to get a certain, result. I've been working on this way too long. That's why when he said, just, you're gone, go do. So what would be a reasonable time frame of expectation? That way I can fully plan out my 2013 strategic plan.
Okay.
So you just put some lines in the sand for me.
Yeah, I would say for each chapter, you're going to think about 5,000 words. That if you have 10,000, if you have 10, it looks like we're working on about 10 chapters. Close to 9 chapters, so that's a 50,000 word book, plus a little bit on the end, which isn't very thick. I don't see any books handy here.
Yeah, there's a pile of books over there. Plus the workbook. Because if we're,
That's about your book right there.
okay.
And that's obviously going to depend on font and what's called leading, the white space around there.
Okay.
So that would be about a 50 to 60,000 word book,
Okay.
roughly. And they would probably do trade paper, not hardback. First time.
Sure.
First time guy. So you would think, and you can also do more chapters and shorter if it starts to work out that way.
Okay.
So as we get down into here, you might start breaking personal into sections, and so you might have personal and then have 3 chapters.
If it's 3 chapters, got it.
Oh, yeah, or 4, or just the organization will become more clear as we get that first one done. Because you might get into personal and go, gosh, 5,000 words is just not enough to cover the whole personal development area.
Right.
And I need more. In which case you might say, okay, well, we'll do 3,000 on 3 subsections. So you wind up with 9,000 words on just the personal.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And from a length of time standpoint,
I'm thinking that you'll probably have enough to you'll probably get the first 2 chapters roughed out pretty good. And I wouldn't focus too much on quality. My style is unusual. Most people, it's better if they find it's easier to edit than it is to write. Mm-hmm. Well, you just write crap and then you edit it, and editing's easier. So it just, it works better for them. And the guy that I work with on Chuck's commentaries, he does the other half of them. That's his style. He says, I just write crap. I just get it out of my head, and then I get a little distance on it. I come back, about a few hours or a couple days later, and then I fix it. And then when I fix it, it's great. It works.
Okay.
So that may be how most people, that's how they do it, is they just write it out. And you've got your blocks. This is what these are. They're the content blocks. So we've sort of organized your thinking. We may rearrange them later, but you've organized your thinking, so you're just going to fill in these blocks, and you're just going to get it out of your head and what you're saying, and then we can come back and fix it.
So if we look over here and we say, what I'd like to know is I want to reverse engineer the result. So that's what I do with everything. So the result is the why. So what is the why for did you call it the preface?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the result I'm trying to achieve in the preface?
Okay. The preface is sort of your personal contact with the reader. Not everybody reads the author's preface, but very often, if you're just at a party and you're talking with people, and you'll say, "Yeah, I've written a book," they'll ask, "Well, what's the book about?" Well, that's the cover. And and tell me a little more, and then you give them the back cover. The back cover is, I've had these experiences, and then when they turn to the preface, now that they're interested in your book, they're going, "Why did you decide to write that?"
Got it.
they always ask that because there is this sort of personal connection with the author. And that's where you kind of open your kimono a bit and you let them know, hey, I struggled with this.
Mm-hmm.
This was, and there, Patrick Carnes wrote a book called the Betrayal Bond. And he said, in the beginning of his book, and it hooked me, he said, I've written a lot of books. I'm a psychiatrist, a psychologist. He's mostly written in the area of sex addiction and porn addiction. He's a non-believer, so he's written it from a secular standpoint. But he says, I wrote this book because I struggled with this one. I wrote this book as an answer to my own problem.
Wow.
And I find myself bonded to people who want to betray me, and I had to figure out why. Why am I attracted to people who are going to betray me?
Wow. Well, that's a strong one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so here, your preface is to make that personal connection, and you kind of get down on their level and go, I'm not on a mountain. I'm not coming down from a mountain. I'm coming up from the same valley you guys are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the answer to my struggle. This is why I developed this, was to fix my life.
It's interesting you say that, because that's the thing that I think drops the boundaries when I'm talking to anybody. I really go, I liken myself to Paul, the chief of sinners. Struggling with this, or having that challenge, or whatever the case may be. So that's the purpose of the preface, or the result we're trying to achieve is
To establish a personal connection.
Personal connection. The introduction, which is not chapter 1, right?
Correct.
So the introduction is when that last page on the introduction is turned, what should I have accomplished?
Okay, well, for a lot of people, the introduction and the preface or the author's preface are the same thing.
Okay.
So, you can call it your introduction. I just did an introduction.
Okay.
I did an acknowledgments, but
Okay.
then my introduction was,
Got it.
So
the introduction /
Personal.
preface is to
establish a personal connection.
with the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then chapter 1, the result for us of chapter 1, what should be the outcome that we have achieved?
You've communicated the ROI.
Okay. So we've communicated the ROI.
In other words,
So your investment in reading the book.
you don't want to do this, you do want to do this, I'm going to tell you how. By
Okay.
reading this book, we're going to figure out how you can get this story to be yours.
Got it. Okay. So we're gonna share with them the story that we've changed the names of the typical end of the road scenario for most men in America,
Right?
and we're gonna then detail what the problem is, life that ends with regrets. We're gonna then share with them another story, which is the story we all hope to achieve, which is when I close my eyes for the last time, I've impacted the lives of others, and I've lived a life of significance, right? Not a life of regrets, right? That's the continuum. Regrets, significance. And then it says overview
Preview. That's where you give them the 30,000-foot
okay.
view of the 5 areas. We're going to focus on these
So we're going to do
5
that
areas.
right there in chapter 1.
Very in brief.
Okay.
We're just going to focus on these 5 areas because I found that we've broken down, and here's why I've chosen these 5 areas.
Okay. Perfect.
And then that will then lead into, and then here's where you unpack Pareto's law, and then you dig into the 5 areas, and that's where you
Gotcha.
actually break them out.
So on 1, again, the problem, it's not the solution. It's not a solution. It's
It's the promise.
the promise. Thank you.
It's the value proposition.
And then I share with them that it is achievable. And here's an example of it being achievable. Okay. And then we outline the 30,000 foot view. What I've learned after working with many men over the past 20 years is that there's basically 5 key areas of our life that we have to balance: personal, business, financial, relational, and spiritual.
And then you can say, the beauty is, you don't have to fix all of those. You're already good in some of those. We're going to look at the areas where you're not so good and fix those. Those we're going to focus so that you get a maximum impact from focusing your attention. So then that becomes the sort of the hint, the preview for this.
So it's a launching pad for chapter 2. In chapter 2, we're going to go. So the purpose of chapter 1 is to get them to go, yeah, I agree. Oh, that's nice to see that there is, another side to it. I don't have to, end up with regrets like everybody else. I can actually end up with significance in all the areas of my life.
Right.
Right? And so that's the promise. So yes, now I want to read how to do that. So now I'm in chapter 2. So chapter 2, the outcome of chapter 2 is what? What's the result of chapter 2?
We are going to unpack, or we're going to get that key idea, that's the core,
Okay.
that they understand that very clearly and that they're at peace with it.
Okay.
Because, one of the things is pride and shame and some of these other things. So if you can get somebody to go, I really do struggle in this area. I stink with finances. I just don't have that skill. And, if I can just get that fixed, or if I can get some help with that or whatever, if you can get them comfortable looking at that and accepting it. So you're going to unpack that idea so that intellectually they understand it, but then emotionally they're at peace with that to go, everybody's got one.
Yeah. So I'm good. I don't have 3 eyeballs.
Right.
I don't stand out.
There you go.
Don't shine the light on me.
Right.
Like everybody else. Don't call me out in a group. Right.
Yep. And then the idea being, everybody's got one. The question is, where is it?
Yeah.
And who's ruling whom?
Right.
Because the unsuccessful people don't look at it and they let that gap rule their lives and ruin their lives. And that's where they end up with regret. Successful people boldly look at their areas of weakness and find ways to bridge that gap. And they're the ones that are successful. They're the ones that don't live with regrets.
That's interesting. So let me just say this. So part of what could happen is you can have this gap, right? And you can do the ostrich syndrome. I don't have that gap. I don't have that issue. That's, it's not a problem. You can have a blind spot where it's not like you're trying to put your head in the sand. You're just blind to it.
Right.
Right. But what successful people do is they have people they're accountable to that go, blind spot, or you got your head in the sand.
Right.
Okay. So I got that part. That's pretty cool.
And you are that guy in this book.
Yeah. And it's,
and it's safe because they don't know you, and it's a book.
Yeah.
So you're doing that in this chapter here. And here's, you've introduced it with this enemy warfare thing, because that's something guys really get.
Yeah. That is, I'm so glad you said that, because the whole thing is we got to get the result of a life of significance. Now, what is your main obstacle? So this fits perfectly. Right? Significance, right? So what is this biggest thing that is the obstacle that's between you and the result, which is living a life of significance?
So what you're going to do is you're going to give them that concept first.
Yes.
Before you get specific. You're going to unpack that concept and, let them know the enemy does not want you to see where your failing is. And if you've got a story or an illustration, something that will fit in there, and this is apocryphal. I've never researched this to find out if it's really true. But it's been said that the reason Japan did so poorly in the war, when they could have actually gone a lot farther than they did, is because people were afraid to give the commanders bad news, because their culture is about saving face.
Yes.
And in that saving face culture, bringing bad news to the commander was a bad thing. Bringing good news to the commander got you rewarded.
Right.
And they lost because they didn't know where they were failing.
Right.
So that's sort of the legend.
Concept, yeah.
I don't know whether that's historically true or not. And I'm to the point now, whenever I write in a book, I'm scared to just put that out there, because too many people do it, and then it turns out it was apocryphal.
Right.
But that's the idea, is if you've got some sort of story or illustration, even better if it's a personal one, where you know somebody, where he was just not going to look at that area and ate his lunch later, then you can slide that in there. But the idea is to get that concept across, and get them emotionally okay with, if you can get them just to admit, I do have one of those somewhere, I just need to figure out where it is. Get them emotionally okay with that, you've accomplished a huge, huge thing.
Well, what's really neat on this whole concept of the battle is this. Everybody has the battle, right? We're fighting battle not in flesh and blood, but a battle against the principalities of darkness. Why? Why has he got the battle? Well, he's giving you a battle because he doesn't want you to take anybody with. That's the whole eternal perspective. So you've got the battle. It's very real. He's out to eat your lunch. And so what do you need? So that's where this is so powerful. So what do you need in order to preemptively handle the obstacle, issue, concern, a crack or crevice, and to overcome that? Well, we need, and I don't know where this fits in, but we need people we're accountable to.
See, that's I would say here.
Got it. Okay, so the purpose here is to just say,
Get that concept
there's a
across
battle.
and let them be comfortable, get them okay with admitting that.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
really
so
hard for me.
Switzerland that you couldn't go this way or that way. It is, you're going to read and go, yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got it. I have
And
that.
the people who fail live in denial, and and then here's where that challenge is, where you can challenge them to face the enemy by looking at where their gaps are and not allowing him to continue to delude them.
Got it. Okay.
So that's, you really only have those two things, is get the concept across and get them comfortable, emotionally comfortable going, okay, I'm screwed up somewhere.
Mhm.
Because in my experience with most men, they just won't. And if you can get them to admit that they have an area of weakness, and that's really what Steve Farrar's thing does down there. There's a bunch of guys in there that are able to admit they struggle with things without losing their male dignity, because Steve enhances that all the time. It's just very virile in there, which is great, So it gets them comfortable at admitting and looking at their weaknesses.
Got it. So the outcome from that is, okay, we understand here the 50,000 foot view. I'm going to give you some basic principles as a principle of deception, right? If you take the challenge up, which is the rest of the book, that is that there is a way to, there are some habits that you can put in place in your life that will help you to achieve a life of significance rather than a life of regret.
And they're different for everybody. It's about figuring out which ones are yours and then
Perfect.
equipping yourself.
Okay, so